Welcome back, everyone. I'm Massimo Rigotti, and this is the Sober Method Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Steve Barton, a business builder, creator of the Game of 10, a registered health and wellness coaching process presented to the Harvard Business School case study team, and co-author of The Father, the Son, and the Aha Moment. Steve has spent decades helping high-achieving men who look completely in control on the outside, but are quietly managing intense internal pressure, fear, self-doubt, guilt, and shame underneath it all. We're going to talk about the real difference between discipline-based sobriety and awareness-based self-mastery, and how high achievers can stay ambitious, present, and free without needing escapes. Steve, welcome to the show.
Massimo, thank you so much for having me. I've got to know you over the past couple of weeks. Great talking to you, and I'm excited to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Well, Steve, you have worked with high achieving men who look completely in control from the outside, but are managing a lot of internal noise underneath. Could you walk us back to your own journey? And what was the moment you realized that most high performers don't actually have a substance problem? They have an internal pressure problem they've learned to manage with alcohol, work, control, or constant output.
Yeah, I was 36 years old when I was in the flower business for 13, 14 years at the time, running my family business. I was 22 when my father had a stroke. I was leaving for Europe and wasn't coming back to study floral design. And 3 days before I was leaving with my one-way ticket, my mother called me up they were at an FTD convention in Kansas City, Missouri. If your father's had a stroke, you can't leave. You got to, we need you to run the business. Fast forward 14 years. I'm married. My wife at the time was a VP of LL Bean, studied from 4 to midnight on the floor. So we were both building our careers, no kids. Um, and one of my employees was going to therapy. And therapy 33 years ago, you didn't go unless you had a problem, right? So today it's a lot different, thank God. So it sounded pretty good to me. So the funny thing is that these C-suite at LL Bean, all type A personalities, working 80 hours a week, all with their MBAs and Ivy League diplomas, and they were all going to this one guy. Okay, he was the wizard for this. And so I said to my wife at the time, I said, what's the name of that guy that everyone at Beans goes to in the office? And she gave me his name. So I made an appointment. And he says to me, when I first sit down, he says, why are you here? I said, I have everything in the world that I want. I'm not happy. That is, I use the F word, up. Okay. And so it's messed up. It's fucked up. So he laughed and I said, how long is it going to take? And what can I expect? I had no idea. He said, so typically I say 3 months, you're halfway there. Okay. No, yeah, which was a great answer. And he said, what you're going to get is mental health. I said, cool. And that's when in that month and a half period, I had a spiritual awakening, left my body, got on a cocaine high naturally, gotten a heroin high naturally. And by the third session, the guy goes, do you have some good teachers around you? I said, yep. He goes, we're done.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, it really is.
It is fantastic, but it's also traumatic when trying to live in a normal world with having those experiences and try to explain it to people. They actually think when you finally go sane, they think you're crazy.
This is true.
It is true.
What's the most common rock bottom moment that you see in those that you work with that have already removed substance, but still find themselves relapsing into the same patterns of fear and self-doubt, guilt, and shame? Is there some common denominator?
It's usually a traumatic experience, like a divorce, out of the blue, finding out their spouse had been cheating on them, finding out that their life that they thought was real wasn't real, and it all comes crashing down. So the key is what I coach is to build that foundation so that it doesn't, no matter what you hear, you know, You find out this information. Well, you got to pack your bags, honey. You just signed the divorce papers without signing the divorce papers, and you have a great life. Thank you very much. That is pure health. It's not normal, but it is natural. You do you, I do me. I'm good with me. So yeah, there's usually when I get a client, they've not hit rock bottom only if they've had a nervous breakdown, because our ego and our identity is built on something like their career, like their marriage, like their family. And when that identity gets shattered, what are you going to do? You either go to, and they don't want to go to therapy, they want coaching. And if I feel that I can help them and they're willing to do it, then I will coach them. But I'm not a therapist. I think there's a time and place for therapy, and I think there's a time and place for coaching. And
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that because I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist. And oftentimes, if you catch it quickly enough, and most of the people that we work with are aware of what's going on, so they catch
mm,
it before it actually requires therapy. And I think that that's the best time to catch it. It really is. Catch it
eh,
before you completely fall to the bottom.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not against medication, but I think medication has to be on a schedule to get off it too, because it can be an addiction as well. You know, I'm all for getting to the root cause. Cause, and in the game of 10, cause causes cause, causes cause, causes cause. You're out of the duality of the effect. And you're not at the effect of others. You're not at the effect of things in
Hmm.
your life, thoughts, feelings, emotions. You're not those effects. You're the cause of them. And we are the good news is you're the cause. And the good news is you are also the cause. So your personal responsibility saying, I created this. How do I undo it? And we can talk about that today.
Sure. So you mentioned knowing a lot of people in the C-suite at LL Bean, and
Mm.
I'm sure both of us have run across quite a few high performers at the top of their game. Do you see any patterns that form here? Because there are lots of high achievers are battling these inner wars, but I mean, they look so completely put together on the outside. Do you see anything consistent before
Well,
that real freedom or that clarity comes to pass for them?
that's why they're in the C-suite, because they can put on the mask, or they're actually the real
True.
deal. So let's get LL Bean out of the way. It's Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000. It doesn't
Sure.
matter what company it is. If you've reached that level in your career and you've done it with your authentic self,
Hmm.
you're fine. But if you've been put in positions and thinking your mindset is at 5 and you're doing a 10 level C-suite job, there's going to be a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
And that level between 5 and 10 is room for substances or
Hmm.
addictions to come in to give you the illusion that you are playing at peak performance.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a perfect transition into what I was thinking of asking you next, which is you teach this simple real time awareness framework, the game of
Hmm.
10.
Hmm.
And can you walk through what being a 10 actually means in the middle of that high pressure day? What's that
Yeah,
look like?
it looks like Ted Lasso.
Okay.
People around the world, I've talked to people, and even I was talking to a guy from England. He's Turkish, working in England, marketing for coaches. And we're talking, and he goes, "What is 10 like?" I said, "Do you know Ted? Do you ever hear of Ted Lasso?" He goes, "Yes," big smile on his face. Everyone says, "I love Ted Lasso." I said, "Ted," and the funny story was my girlfriend, who been together 9 years now, and about a year ago, she said, I would always hear her, so and so asked me what you do. I was at this event and so and so, I don't even know what you do. And so I said, I can't explain it. So we're watching the third episode of Ted Lasso together. And she looked at me, she says, she put on pause. She goes, Ted Lasso's a 10, isn't he? I said, yep. Now I know what you do. I couldn't tell her. She wouldn't even know. I how do explain what it is? It's a state of mind. It's a mindset, state of being. Stuff happens. I mean, if the audience knows about Ted Lasso, his wife left him for his marriage counselor while he was in England. How much betrayal can you put up with? And he did. He went to therapy. He had great friends. They all had great storylines, great poignant, really great acting, great writing. Kudos to. I just met. Yeah, and I think you know Jason Sudeikis.
I
Yeah,
do. I went to
it,
high school with Jason. Yeah.
there you go. There's a something.
I have a direct tie to Mr. Sudeikis.
There you go. So he knows 10. He knows how to play. At least he knows how to act like a 10.
Yes, and very good writing. And so, what you're describing then in sobriety for the game of 10
Mhm.
is, I understand it, that's not as the absence of the substance, but the absence of the identification with the thought. So, it's a reframe. So, what's that
It,
practice look like, as far as someone having those racing thoughts?
well, it's actually you have to brainwash yourself from the addiction of thought. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm okay with that. Describe what that looks like then.
Eckhart Tolle says it best. The biggest addiction we have in this world is overthinking. So we get trained and conditioned to think. We get punished if we don't as a child. Okay. There are consequences in this society not thinking, but they don't say become aware. Okay. There's a difference between thinking and awareness. One is a tool and one is a state of mind and a state of being. So come from that foundation of the state of being. So I'll explain the game of 10. Think of it this way. We're all appointed 10. It's an appointment. It's an appointment and a responsibility to maintain that appointment, to keep that appointment. Through life's daily living, through life's experiences, everyone, including myself, has been disappointed. Okay. And if those disappointments are traumatic and consistent, our mind goes into a state of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And we stay in that level of awareness, not all the time, but something may trigger us. It might be relationships that we're not there to set ourselves up again. We'll close our heart to get hurt. But in the meantime, we're hurting ourselves by closing our heart because our energy needs to come out. And the only one's hurting is ourselves. So we get confused about we don't need to close our heart. We need to set healthy boundaries in what we're willing to accept in our life. Are we willing to accept disrespect? No. Are we willing to accept less than who we are? Are we willing to accept less than 10 in our life? No. But often we do. They call that the game often played.
All
1
right.
through 9, and even 9, highly successful people. These are my client. Those are my C-suite people. They're 9s. Okay. But they can't get to 10 because they need to be motivated 10% by fear, self-doubt, guilt, and shame. That's that little bit. And they want to hold on to that because they've always been conditioned to be driven by fear of losing their job, fear of not getting that next client, fear of not having enough. So it's really you can get to 9 by positive thinking, but you can't get to 10 by thinking at all.
So that last 10% and is really that daily intoxicant, for lack of a better term. We're basically using fear, self-doubt, guilt, and shame upon ourselves to distort reality in order to create enough momentum to be masked as a 10, if I'm understanding the way that you're describing it.
100%. And you can use sex, you can use alcohol, you can use drugs, you can use anything to fill it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because
Right.
it does, but it's an artificial.
So how do you help move somebody then who is a 9
Okay.
to to get to that 10 level? How how
All right.
how do they move?
What's been working lately is this because nobody wants to be arrogant. So I'll
True.
say somebody who's holding on to being a 9, I said, I'm staying to 9. I'm going to be 9 because I need that little push because it's always worked. I can do it. So I said, what if I told you how arrogant that is? What do you mean? I said, you think you're 10. 10 is we're all aspects of God. Whatever your God is, whatever your source, call it consciousness, awareness, God, energy, we're divine beings. So what you're saying is you think that you were created divinely and he made a mistake with you by 10%. That is arrogant thinking. It's as arrogant as saying you're 11, 12, 13. They're both arrogant, but we don't think of being less than who we are. Everyone's 10. But when we think we're less, we're conditioned to think that's humility. I can do better.
Mm-hmm.
I can do more. I can have more. I can be more. I've got to work. But the misconception is your being, your 10, is perfect as it is. It just needs alignment with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your mind, your body, your career, what your skill level. Okay. The skills so we have these things. We have a skill, we have a trade, we have a profession, we have a family, we have an identity. These are all identities. And if you identify with your body, mind, thoughts, as long as they're aligned with 10, you're good to go. That's the only time you're good to go. Not at 11 and not at 9. At 10, that's alignment. And you have the awareness that if you lost everything tomorrow, you'll just get it back. Because you can't be unsuccessful with that mindset. Can't. Because
I totally agree with that premise because after my own rock bottom experience,
Mhm.
I was able to, in most people's eyes, rocket back to the top. But all I was being my authentic self for the first time in my life.
Yes. And there's a complete difference.
Yeah.
That's the awareness of it. And I think people have to go through it because it's not, you have to experience life. You can be taught all you want, but if you haven't experienced, it's just an idea. I don't know what it is, but I hear that's what the idea is. And you've learned it through the books or people, but it's almost like explaining to someone who's never had sex.
Yes.
And they're most likely going to say, gross. No.
That's definitely true. Well,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, there are a few powerful premises of the game of 10. I am a 10. I'm doing the
Yeah.
best I can with the awareness I have. I am enough. I do enough. I have enough. Which one tends to create the biggest shift for these high achievers as they're trying to close in on that 10 to be present and still ambitious?
I think they all have to be said because it answers all the aspects of our mind, egoic mind made self is asking to ourselves. Those constant chatters in our heads, it's just looking for answers to protect us, but it's not actually protecting us. It's actually harming us. So I think that there's not one in particular. There's all six. Okay. Because I'm 10 is a declaration of who we are innately, infinitely, divinely, any of those. Okay. Then I'm doing the best I can with the awareness that I have. And I'm always right with the awareness that I have. These are caveats at the end because we're right until we get further information. And it's okay being wrong. People hold on to their rightness and righteousness because if they let it go, they'd have guilt and shame. Shame, basically. I'm bad. How could I be so stupid to think this? Okay. So they'll hold on to it for dear life until they realize I love being wrong.
Hmm.
And you have to love being wrong and you have to love not knowing.
Yeah.
It's
It's the
because
opportunity to know more, right?
correct. And it's in the game often played, these things I'm saying are paradoxes. But in the game of 10, they're intuitions. It's intuitive. So we're going from paradox to intuition. Intuition and intentionality are alignment. So yeah, I just kind of lost my train of thoughts.
I didn't mean
Okay,
to
now I
interrupt it and do that
got
to
it,
you.
got it back. I went to, all right. So the next three, so those two phrases are actually declarations of our divine innocence. Okay. And these phrases go for everyone else too. So you have to see everyone as 10 to be a 10. They might be acting like a 3 and a 3-year-old, but they're still a 10. Okay. So their behavior is not who they are. Okay. So that's when you hear people don't criticize the person, talk about the behavior. That's not acceptable. The person's acceptable. The behavior isn't. Those are boundaries. So the next three phrases, I am enough, I do enough, and I have enough, put you in present moment awareness. of the universal quantity, the universal proportion, the universal space. Time, now. Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. I don't think he mentioned, I want to read his book again or ask my chat if he mentions the universal quantity. And I've asked this to, every time I meet someone and we talk about this stuff, I said, do you know what the universal quantity is? I had a podcast. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I had a podcast. I said, nobody ever gets it. And I'm not going to put a podcaster on the spot. I'm going to tell you what it is. He got it. And I'm going, oh my God, because our minds don't want us to know this stuff. Our egoic mind does not want us to heal. Our egoic mind is insane.
Hmm.
And it wants us to be, and the funny part is, sickly funny, is it's afraid it's going to die. And it's not even real. We created it. So the universal quantity is enough. The infinite enough. And that sounds is counterintuitive because you always want more. And some people don't have enough because it puts us in the past and the future thinking out of the present moment. So, but you want to get into the portal of yourself to open up your awareness because we close our mind down outside in thinking of the past or thinking of the future. The past causes depression, guilt, shame, fear, self-doubt. The future causes anxiety from future thinking. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Fear, self-doubt, guilt, and shame. Present moment, unconditioned love. That's where you want to be. That's the sweet spot to get to the C-suite, the sweet. The sweet. So that's where you want to be and consistently. So what I coach my clients to do is memorize those phrases, which you did. And basically it's an active meditation that you can do throughout the day.
Yeah.
Because I have ADHD and I've never been able to sit down for an hour without having racing thoughts go through my head and said, this is bullshit. I can't do it. And my mind doesn't work that way, but my mind does work when I have these phrases. It shuts it off. I've had, I'm in a BNI group in Portland, Maine, and I give 2 free coaching sessions to my group because they're my salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
One guy, his name is Steve too. He comes in one day. He says, I go, how you doing, Steve? He goes, oh my God, I didn't sleep last night. My mind is racing and everything. And I said, okay, see me after. So we did those phrases together in a room. And he said, and he says them, we said them together. He goes, oh my God, I can't think. And then he starts laughing. I can't think. And he starts hysterically laughing, blissing out. Are you blissing out? He goes, yeah. And I said, great. I said, if you start leaving your body, let me know. I'll help you get back in. So, I told him that by being 10, he was going through the 5 year, the 3 to 5 year, no, crickets, buy a franchise, crickets. He goes, Steve, it's going to happen. I don't know when, but don't give up. It's going to happen. Well, within 6 months, a year, he stood up in front of the whole group. I thought Steve Barton was crazy. Honest to God, I thought he was nuts. But now I know everything he told me came true. And I get that a lot. And so when someone says they think I'm crazy with this, I say, yeah, I'm crazy like a fox.
It's always rewarding when that happens.
It is, I don't care, but I do care. I had to come up with a word when I deeply, deeply, deeply give a
Mm-hmm.
F and deeply, deeply, deeply don't give a F. Okay. And there's no word in the English language that I've found. I've checked Chat, GTP, I checked Gemini, and I checked Grok and come up with that word that it's called compassionate detachment.
Okay.
So we have to be compassionately detached from ourselves and others with balance on that tightrope. Balance. When do you really care? I mean, if you deeply, deeply, deeply care about something you have no control over, and you're doing nothing about it, what's that going to cause? Anger, frustration, grief, all is just insanity. But if you can do something about it, that's going to bring you joy and passion and purpose. And so it's really finding that sweet spot of what you have control over. And that is, I think a lot of addiction is about controlling your thought. Well, if the ego is based on power, control, and put it in business, put profit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're describing the dichotomy of control and being able to see patterns, and basically that's the observe and behavior step in sober method. So I wanted to make sure everyone knows they can find you at stephenbartoncoaching.com. That's the best place to connect with you.
SteveBartonCoaching.com.
Sorry, yeah, stephenbartoncoaching.com.
You wouldn't find me. That's okay. You'll find me.
It'll be in the show notes, everyone. It's stephenbartoncoaching.com. My mistake. I tried to make you a
I'm
Stephen.
a big forgiver and letting goer. I love making mistakes because I love the mistakes I learned from. I repeat the ones I don't.
Steve, all of this has been great advice. And everyone, here is one sober move that I want every high performer listening to take this week. And it's inspired from the game of 10 that Steve teaches. I want you to observe one moment today when internal noise, that fear, self-doubt, guilt, shame, or the urge to escape into work or old habits starts to run the show. I want you to catch it in real time, and I want you to name it. In behavior, I want you to create a brief pause and ask yourself, am I at a 10 right now, or am I identified with thought? Then choose one small response that comes from presence instead of reaction. And then in execute, I want you to take and execute that response at least 3 times this week. And notice the difference between being run by the noise versus living from clarity and calm. Now, Steve, we have a tradition on this podcast where each guest answers a question from my last guest. And then after answering, we'll get your question from my next guest. It's kind of a fun game.
Love
So
that.
Non Senana left this question for you. And in order to get to the question, I need to give you the full context before
Okay.
getting to the question. Non said, so I was thinking, since your grandmother is 94 and mine is 107, I would love for your next guest to imagine their own grandmother or grandfather version of themselves looking back decades in the future. What would that wise future version of themselves say to their present self right now? It might be a piece of advice, some encouragement, or simply loving thoughts. And I would love to hear what that future self would tell their current self.
That's a complex question. I'm going to dissect it saying, keep it simple, that everything's going to be okay. Just get out of the way and let life happen for you and with you, and experience it, learn from it, overcome adversities, and do it with grace and love and kindness towards yourself first and others equally.
There's some great wisdom in there, Steve.
Off the cup, channel that one.
Well, now it's your turn. What question would you like to leave for my next guest?
What is your purpose for? What is your purpose and what is your passion? And why do you do the job that you're doing? And why do you do it so well?
Ooh, that's going to be a good one. I can't wait to ask that question.
There you go. That's a good one.
Steve, you get the last minute. Any words of wisdom for a high achiever listening who feels the weight of internal pressure but wants real freedom and presence?
1 minute, part of the game of 10 is letting go and how to forgive. So when you do say these phrases, it opens up a whole can of worms in your subconscious of stuff that you've been suppressing. Okay. So everyone in the audience, your mind, God's an idea in the mind of us. We're an idea in the mind of God. These are our temples. Create a temple in your mind. And in that temple, create an altar. And any thoughts that come up that are not 10 thoughts towards yourself or others, you put those thoughts on an altar and if you're going to say a prayer, because every thought is a prayer, say, I'm willing to see this differently. Could be a person, place, or situation. You're willing to take it in and depress yourself. You need to be willing to let it go. So use your free will for good. It's a great tool. Use your tools, be yourself.
That was fantastic advice. Very, very, I really appreciate that advice. I'm going to take it upon myself to start thinking about my own thoughts a little bit differently after hearing that. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. This has been great. I really appreciate you and what you're doing for others, and keep up your great work. And the game of 10 is, I've told Massimo that it's like Aflac. Keep doing what you're doing well, if it's AA or if it's religion or whatever you're doing or therapy. The game of 10 is a supplementary uh, process or insurance for keeping you on track for your life is without addiction.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. To everyone listening, I want you to keep observing your own behaviors. And if you aren't already, start journaling them daily. I'm Massimo Rigotti, and this is the Sober Method Podcast. Please follow, like, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a high achiever who needs to hear it. Remember, everyone, your future is sober.